Hey, I'm Anthony, and 2020 has been pretty crazy, but one thing that hasn't changed is the college football playoff format. Sadly, however, that isn't a good thing, because the format is very flawed and has been top-heavy for years now. A team like UCF in 2017 and teams like Cincinnati and BYU of 2020 virtually have no shot at the college football playoff, because they just simply aren't in the Power 5. In this video, we will be detailing my top 6 teams and who I think will be ending up in the final CFP rankings. But first, I want to talk about the format. The format has 4 teams and is 2 semifinals and then the national championship game. So for teams that normally aren't a traditional powerhouse, if they have a phenomenal year, win their conference championship, and get into the Final Four playoff, it will be a greater opportunity for them to get better recruits, better signees, better coaches, and staff that want to be there. But in the past few years, we've only seen a handful of teams make it, such as Clemson, Alabama, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Georgia, and LSU. There has been virtually no change in the 4 teams, as there has only been 7 teams in the past 4 years. Before that, Michigan State, Florida State, Oregon were teams that made it, but there was always Alabama, Clemson, and either Ohio State or Oklahoma. Penn State had a chance to make it in 2018, but they were screwed over by the CFP committee. And now for the best team to never make the college football playoff, the 2014 TCU Horned Frogs were phenomenal. The only reason they didn't make it, however, was because at the time the Big 12 did not have a championship game, and Ohio State were big winners over Wisconsin 59-0. I believe that was one of the main perpetrators, but their loss against Baylor wasn't pretty. But personally, I think the best format there is a 64-team playoff, like a March Madness style bracket, where a team that could be 3-8 could move it past the first round, facing a team like Tulane or San Diego State. I think that'd be super fun. But the best possible one is an 8-team playoff with the winners of the Pac-12, Big 10, ACC, SEC, Big 12, and AAC, and then the 2 best teams after that making it. 2020 would have been a perfect year because of short schedules and differences in the time of each conference having their games, but instead they chose the same broken format that nobody has wanted for multiple years. So what you have here is the 8-team playoff bracket, and this shows the winners of all 6 conferences mentioned in the 2 best available. I believe this is the most likely scenario, but I don't know about Notre Dame and Clemson because they are a toss-up, because I don't know where they're going to be seated if Clemson wins or if Notre Dame's going to win. This is what I believe an 8-team playoff would look like, and I understand people's criticisms of it because they are saying that it's just a waste of rounds if we are already going to get into the Final Four, because as I predict, BYU is going to lose to Alabama, Oklahoma going to lose to Ohio State, Cincinnati, very close game, but they're going to lose to Clemson, and then Oregon's going to lose to Notre Dame. But that one could be a toss-up, and basically we'd still have the final 4 teams remaining. But the fact that it's so detrimental to a college football team to make the playoffs is the reason why this is the best format. It gives everybody an equal playing field, and I think this will be the most well-received out of any possible way or format. But like I said, I think the most fun would be a 64-team playoff bracket, but I don't know if anybody would be down with that, but I certainly would be. I think doing a March Madness-style bracket would be so fun and give college football more of a fun and lighthearted atmosphere, as it's taken so seriously nowadays, because March Madness is obviously one of the best sporting events that takes place year-round. Other than the Stanley Cup Finals, I think it's the best. The ratings will pour in. NCAA will make a ton of money. There's going to be way more football games. It's going to last way longer than the early January end to most seasons, and I think everybody would be happy. So here, after all this time, I'll finally announce the teams that I believe will be the top 6 remaining at the end of the year. At number 6, we have the Cincinnati Bearcats. Deshaun Kaiser and his electric offense can blow any defense, and has been shown week to week that this guy is a proven winner, and I don't see them losing another game. They faced Temple and Tulsa in the last 2 games of the regular season, and will most likely face Tulsa in the AAC championship game. Tulsa will be a challenge. They might lose, but I don't believe they will. I believe they will prevail as AAC champions for the first time under Luke Fickell, and the first time since 2014 when Tommy Tuberville, was their head coach. Luke Fickell has done a phenomenal job with the Cincinnati Bearcats, and I only see him going up from here. This will most likely be the best non-Power 5 team we have seen since UCF all the way back in 2017. Make no mistake about it, the Florida Gators are the number 5 team in the country, and I understand In this Tuesday's CFP rankings, they were put at 6, but I think by the end of the season, they'll be 5. Going into the SEC championship game, they'll be 5, and coming out of it, they will, unless they win. If they win, I believe they're in the CFP for the first time ever. I don't see this team losing the rest of the year. They have Kentucky, LSU, and Tennessee, and the only game I really see coming close is the Tennessee game. Tennessee's been a good team, not great, but I think they can give Florida a game. But Kyle Trask, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. Make no mistake about it. He proves it week after week. It's so fun seeing this Florida team cruise through everybody they face, and especially the best team in college football and the SEC championship game. I think it will be a close one between Alabama and Florida, but I think Alabama will prevail. And yes, originally I did say BYU will make the 8th seed if there's an 8-team playoff, but I retract that statement as the segment was filmed before Tuesday night's CFP rankings. My number 4 team in the country is the Clemson Tigers. I believe they are better than Notre Dame, but I believe because the head-to-head game against Notre Dame didn't go in their favor, even though they didn't have Trevor Lawrence, who's the best player in college football, Notre Dame will have the higher seeding. I think if Clemson gets the 3 seed, they will be in the national championship game once again. But I think if they get the 4 seed, it's going to be a really tough game against Alabama. They'll be neck and neck. They might win, but they're probably going to lose because this Alabama team is just so unstoppable, and Nick Saban's experience against them could come back to haunt Clemson. Trevor Lawrence is one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, and he leads one of the best offenses, led by him and Trevor Etienne. And make no mistake about it, Dabo Swinney deserves all the credit in the world. He has great starters coming back, but he also has a lot of guys missing on his defense that were stars last year. And they are still looking like the same dominant Clemson. Yes, they had 1 loss, and no, I don't believe that should be a determining factor in their seeding because I believe in the ACC championship game they will beat Notre Dame once again, but I don't know how that's going to affect the seeding. It's going to be really tough to tell. My number 3 team in college football is Ohio State. They're a phenomenal football team that gets better every week. They had a really tough challenge this week with Indiana, but I don't see them losing again. Michigan will be an easy win, as Michigan doesn't look like anything they have in recent memory, and Ohio State's been dominating them for years now. Michigan State won't be tough either, and then the big challenge. The last challenge of the year will most likely be the Big Ten championship game with Northwestern and Ohio State. Northwestern could be as high as seeded 5, as they don't look like they're going to lose out either. They are a very good football team. In a very challenging game like this, Ohio State tends to come up big, and I think they will again. Ohio State just seems too good, and that Northwestern offense is too inconsistent and not good enough for that electric Ohio State defense. The Ohio State offense could have some trouble scoring, but this Northwestern offense might not even score. Ohio State will most likely play Notre Dame or Clemson in the CFP semifinal game, and Ohio State has a great chance of beating either team. This team is very good and experienced. They might be missing J.K. Dobbins, who ran for 200 yards against Clemson last year, but I still believe a very close game is in store regardless of the team they face. Ryan Day has set this team up for success, has a great offense, and just as good of a defense that has helped them thrive all season long, and it looks to continue through the last 3 weeks of the season. My number could change, but standing right now, my number 2 team in college football is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Of course, this team has been great all year, and I don't believe they will lose again. They have an easy schedule remaining with Syracuse and Wake Forest, but they have a tough challenge this week with UNC. If they get by UNC, they're going to cruise into the ACC championship game with ease. I don't see them winning the ACC championship, however, but if they win, they will remain at the 2 spot, and it will be well-deserved. Notre Dame has a lot of returning starters, and this is easily the best Ian Book has ever looked under Brian Kelly, who could possibly be the coach of the year. He's been a great coach and a great mentor to this young Notre Dame team, and they have a very good chance at making the national championship game if they are in that 2 slot. And now for the number 1 team, the one you've all been waiting for, but expected. The Alabama Crimson Tide are filled with experience, not only at head coach, but at quarterback, running back, and receiver, and their offensive line. They have a stacked defense once again and have blown out everybody in sight. Auburn will not be a tough challenge this week, and they will handily win the SEC. Alabama looks this good every year, but this year I believe is different. I believe they will breeze by the number 4 seed, and I believe they'll be national champions, and by a good amount. I believe they could win by 14, 17, maybe 21 points in that game. Depends on who they play. This might be the best Alabama team we've seen in a very long time. Their offense is purely dynamic, and their defense is extremely explosive. This is the scariest team in college football, and I don't believe anybody is close. Hey, you finally made it to the end of the video. Congratulations. I know it was a long one, and it was pretty hard to sit through. Not really fun for me to talk. But if you could like, subscribe, comment, follow my TikTok at Joey R. Biden, follow my Instagram at Olshansky with a 0 as an O, and follow my Snapchat, or add me on Snapchat, I should say, Matthias Kiwanuka. Thank you guys.